afternoon, everyone. Many thanks for joining us today for this webinar on virtual training, maximizing the reach and minimizing the cost. This webinar is brought to you by Denave, leading global sales tech brand, which rides high on innovation and delivers measurable impacts. Here is a quick snapshot of the gamut of offerings provided by Denave. So right from highly accurate contactable database to analytics to digital marketing, training, and many more. You've got everything covered to manage your end-to-end sales journey. And this is me, Abhilasha, marketing specialist at Denave, your host for this session. On the presenter side, we have the delightful company of three training experts, Shakita Ahuja, Deputy GM Training, Denave.
Good afternoon, everyone.
Then we have Sunita Parekh, Deputy GM Training, Denave.
Good afternoon. Very glad to be a part of this webinar today.
Thank you, Sunita and Shakita. So Sunita and Shakita will be our co-presenters today for this webinar. And we have Girija Goel, Deputy GM Training at Denave, who would be helping us with the audience Q&A.
Hello, everyone.
Definitely, Abhilasha. So the elements that we're going to discuss today will obviously revolve around the core topic of our webinar, which is virtual training. We'll start off by seeing how the training mix is changing and evolving, be it COVID or non-COVID. We will spend some time to understand the W's of the virtual training, which is like the what, when, who, and all that. And then most of our time would be spent discussing on how to devise a foolproof or a successful virtual training program. We will also discuss the most seeked after question for anyone from the training team is how to measure effectiveness. So that's where we will leave our thoughts on how to measure effectiveness of a training program. And towards the end, we will quickly walk through the emerging trends in the training fraternity that we are seeing and forecasting, so that all of us are like future ready. So once again, I'm welcoming all of you for this webinar, and we are hoping to share and also receive a few great ideas from everyone here. And as Abhilasha has already stated, do leave questions or suggestions that you have over the chat, and then we'll just be happy to pick them up as in how we proceed.
Thank you, Sunita. But if I can just stop you there just for a while, and though I know that you're covering the post-COVID-19 era preparation part towards the end, can I also request you to begin on that note? Because like, how's the paradigm shifted overnight in the world of training, given this COVID-19 situation? So given your rich industry experience, if you can just begin by talking about that, the great COVID impact on training.
Yes. So, well, the effect of COVID is seen almost in every aspect of our lives, be it personal, professional, be it adult or a child. COVID-19 is forcing businesses across the globe to look for agile modes of operation and transform strategies. And the impact of COVID on learning and development and training is like, it's too big to be ignored. Quoting the numbers here, from etrainingindustry.com, almost 57% of the organizations have been recorded a huge impact on the training function due to this COVID. There have been sudden disruption to the classroom trainings, which leaves us with no other choice than to resort to virtual training. And as we see on the screen, we have headlines of a few leading newspapers revolving around how the training is affected, and it is just evident and obvious from here that virtual training is becoming the key to all the learning needs. While all this is globally that we're speaking about, Financial Express, Telegraph UK and all that, we also wish to share with you what's happening in our world underneath. So when you look at the constituents of the training methodologies, while we all are aware of the different methods in which we deliver training programs, in-person training such as the classroom training, on-the-job training and workshop used to take a major share of our training mix before the COVID, which is like you can see here around 70+%. We definitely had self-learning and virtual training at 10 and 17% respectively. We've been doing virtual training in our organization from like more than 10 years now, but of late we've seen that the increase of demand is there. Since the onset of the remote working and work from home scenario, that's I think to be precise, like 55 days plus 55 days now. So our current methodology of the training mix is changing. So currently we have 0% training happening through classrooms and workshops, 0% training happening through on-the-job training. This is because of the COVID scenario, the social distancing, the lockdown, and taking care of all the health measures and all that things. So these kind of trainings, the in-person training is actually come down to zero. While we've seen an increase in self-learning at 30%, and the huge share of the pie in our training mix is taken up by virtual training. Yes. So while virtual training was there, and I'm sure it will be there and continuing, the adaptability and the relevance has increased in these present times. Just to add another point here, I mean, while we're all looking at the whole COVID situation as a challenge and all that thing, but I think it's a good thing to have to look at the opportunity in the adversity. All of us are like now geared up for innovations. We are all looking up for creativity, and we've picked up pace in the way we are doing things, the redesigning, the reformation in the training delivery, which either we've been like procrastinating about or we've not been given a priority to. Now that's become the need of the hour.
So I guess like very well put, Sunita. So kind of adversity becoming a springboard for innovation. I think we can say that. And in fact, the gap in the percentage which you showcase, like from 17% to 70%, like it's actually quite significant. And I think it's definitely more than a trend, as you also mentioned. Like virtual training is here to stay. Like while the virus may come or go, so more like a step in the direction of like future of training, I think.
Certainly.
Anyways, like before you delve deeper into the nuances of virtual training, Sunita, as you planned, I think let's have a quick audience poll to understand like how COVID-19 has impacted trainings in their respective organization. Like I guess that will help us to steer the conversation in the right direction from here on.
Yes, Abhilash, I think that will be a good thing to have. I'm sure on the screens we can see that there's a poll being put up. We're requesting our attendees to give in their vote. Great, we're seeing a few answers coming in. So, Abhilasha, how long do we keep this poll for?
I think like maybe next 5 or 10 seconds, and then I guess we can continue.
Okay, wonderful. I guess we've registered our 50. So yes, we're still getting votes. So let's just keep it on for another 3-4 seconds before we close it off. Yeah, fine. So closing the poll here, and this is how we see the results have come up. Great. It's interesting to see that while I hope the poll results are there on the screens. While 43% have moved to 100% virtual mode, which is like, yeah, good. But there are 43% which is still planning to move to virtual training. And out of the people from the training industry who joined us today, 14% are still, I guess, either figuring out or have done no trainings after the lockdown has happened. While just to share a bit of an industry standard here, 50% of organizations worldwide are still figuring out how to roll out virtual trainings in their organization, and that's exactly why we are having this topic of discussion today.
Yeah, it's kind of a new thing which happened with everybody overnight, I guess. Like everybody was kind of caught off guard.
Exactly. So let's move ahead. We people from the training field, and what we do generally to a topic while we are understanding a topic is break them into smaller pieces and then understand each and every W of it. So I think that's where we'll start off with. Let's quickly do this first part of virtual training while most of us understand what's virtual training. So we'll spend a little less time here and quickly walk through, while we want to spend most of our time in discussing how to devise a good virtual training plan strategy. That will be taken up with Shakita in the second half. So let's get started. So virtual training, what's virtual training? Yes, it's known by many names, which may or may not be used interchangeably, which are like e-learning, online classes, digital training, etc. But basically in a virtual training session or in a virtual training scenario, we have a trainer who's facilitating online, that he's facilitating on your screen rather than he be present in front of you in person. So basically that's what a virtual training is.
So Sunita, apart from not being an in-person session, because like that's kind of the literal definition which we take out from virtual training, how does virtual training stands apart from a regular classroom or on-the-job training? So if you can just talk about all the differences between them, distinctions.
Yeah, that's a good topic you've brought up, Abhilasha. So when we speak about classroom training, which is our like most beloved traditional way of delivering a training, well, a mere copy paste of the classroom training on a digital platform will not do us any good. It's not just that you get the content and the trainer speak on a digital platform and the work is done. Designing a virtual training is a different game altogether. We are dealing in a virtual session, we are dealing with learners who are seated like away from the trainer, and you never know that he might be watching a Netflix or maybe creating a TikTok video while the trainer is like delivering his training or doing his job on the screen, right? So hence by a great deal of planning, structuring, bringing in all the instructional designing elements gets a successful virtual training program. There's a lot more of effort and focus required when we're speaking about virtual trainer. And also our learners are pretty new to the digital tools and the entire virtual training methodology. So that's again a challenge. So there are different set of challenges and a lot of involvement of technology, a lot more of strategizing, and a great deal of multitasking that all takes into delivering a good virtual session. So I think this is how I would like to differentiate the classroom versus a virtual session.
Training. But Sunita, like as you have put it, like a great deal of homework, as it is sounding to me, like I'm actually like a great fan of automation mindset. So anything which helps you get the task done quickly and simply. So this is sounding obviously like a lot of complex effort and a lot of effort going into it. So my question: why not something simpler? If this much of an effort needs to be put in virtual training. I know I'm going contrary to the theme of our webinar, but like maybe on behalf of the audience, I am asking all the tough questions to you today.
You've asked a simple question. Let me just give you a very simple answer, because the benefits of virtual training outweigh the efforts that go into creating a virtual training. So firstly, let's speak of things that is most important to us. Firstly, it's more economical, Abhilasha. So imagine the training cost incurred in terms of travel, venue, loss of productive hours. So all these things are well taken care of. Imagine you have to train 20 people, asking them to fly down to a central location, booking a venue, booking stay, lunch. So it's a costlier affair. So it's far more economical. It's very quick. The evaluation can be done like instantly. We just had a poll and the results were right in front of us. Imagine the trainer has to do it otherwise, right? It's easily manageable, and the quality of the training can be measured instantly. So imagine it was not a webinar and we were delivering a training. So my manager could have easily logged into the session and easily could have scaled me or measured how I'm delivering the training. So that's another plus point. And not to miss out, the trainees these days, they are more and more of like these on-the-move learners, right? So they want to learn at their own.
I guess.
Exactly. Yes. So with these kind of learners coming in, you prefer a screen rather than a person, and they like their own self-paced learning to be there. Asynchronous learning is picking up these days, and virtual training can definitely support all that. So I think the affordability, the scalability, the level to which we can customize it, it's so easily accessible. It's just one click away. So I think in all these ways, virtual training is, we feel, far more beneficial. And just want to quote an example here of Deloitte. We're all aware of the name. Deloitte has a rule. The rule is that 1% of the employee's time is mandatory for virtual training. So 1% of the time is like 25 minutes a week, or maybe 5 to 6 minutes a day. Now imagine you need to do that in a classroom scenario. You just can't pull out people for 7-8 minutes and do a classroom training. So people like snack-sized content these days. They like smaller chunks to come to them when it comes to learning. So yes, virtual training is there to support all that. I hope I've answered your question.
Yeah, Sunita. In fact, great to hear these bunch of benefits. But let me ask you another twist question here. I don't know whether that will be tough for you or not. So where does virtual training fail, or where it is not a best fit? Like you've explained us these benefits very well, but there would be some place, because it is not hunky-dory or perfect every time, everywhere. So where it does not fit as such.
Okay. So where it fits and where it may not be the best fit. So while there's a lot of innovation happening through technology and other methods in virtual training, to a great extent, the in-person feeling is tried to be replicated in a virtual training as well. But the best hits or the best fit is when it comes to knowledge. So when it's a knowledge sharing which has to be done, or you need to be training the people who are already trained, when you're doing perhaps a product training, you're sharing a quick update. Virtual training is like the thing for it. But then when it comes to certain aspects where you want to have peer learning to be done, where solo learning, isolated learning may not be the solution. So there, virtual training may not be the best fit, but due to the tools and technologies, all these online collaborations can be done. But then yes, replicating it 100% to the classroom way may not be there. And even when it comes to a new skill that we're learning, though we have people now during the lockdown, we hear different stories, people trying to learn guitar online. So yes, it's a new skill, learning it online, but then I'm sure always the hands-on is with your trainer or with your instructor is always required. So for a new skill, for places where a hands-on equipment is required, virtual training may not be the best fit, but yes, it can be the second option. You can be a close match there. And also when it comes to onboarding employees. Now here, Abhilasha, I think I'll be speaking a little contrary to what the industry is doing, because a whole lot of effort and money is being spent on inducting new employees virtually into an organization. But somehow we feel that when a new person is joining an organization, it's always nice to onboard him in person, because then you can make him feel that culture of the organization and make him sink in to the environment of your organization. So I think these are places where like the virtual training is the next fit, but yes, more or less I think we can have it in every domain. Having said that, I think, I think there's another aspect that we might want to speak about, which is whom is it for? So getting inspired by your questions, Abhilasha, so I'm just picking this topic as a next point of discussion. While virtual training was developed way back in the World War II for military training, that was then. But now all sectors have seen the potential that virtual training holds. Most developed sectors, and which requires a different skill set. For example, healthcare, for example, transportation, etc. All these are adopting to virtual training. And just to share examples here, virtual training is like a real big hit when it comes to communication training, HR training, sales training, across almost all industries and across all audience. To share our own example, we've been doing virtual training from the last 10 years, and we've done trainings for oil and lubes, we've done virtual trainings for merchant onboarding, we've done trainings for virtual trainings for complex solutions like cloud computing, ERP sales, and all that. So across industry, across different set of audiences, and for different set of competencies, we've been doing training. So yes, virtual training is for everyone. It's up to us, the training team and the trainer, how well we make it useful for our people. So now virtual training, hashtag COVID or hashtag no COVID. So virtual training is a different thing that we've been speaking about. But then when the COVID situation hit us, while we had an edge of delivering virtual trainings like from a long time, but it wasn't easy for us also to start it off. Right, we were like all caught unprepared, and it took us while we were all unprepared, it took us hardly 2 to 3 days to launch our first virtual training session series, which was on how to work from home. So that's how we came up, and I'm sure all of you, we've seen your questions also. You've been trying to ask us how to replicate the experience and how to enhance the learnings, how to engage the learners. So let's quickly move to that. So when we had to like replicate it on a large scale, the first thing, apart from like just starting off, we asked ourselves many questions. So first thing that we asked ourselves were, are we equipped enough and are we prepared enough to roll out a virtual training? The second questions that we all got together, and so before we started off with our virtual trainings, all the trainers and the training team got onto a digital session, and we all brainstormed and kept questioning ourselves, and then started looking for answers. And that is how we have our best practices in place. So yes, the first thing that we asked was, are we prepared? Second was, can we prepare ourselves? Certainly yes. Next, can classroom training trainers, we have a very good set of trainers who are good when it comes to classroom delivery, but can these same set of trainers deliver virtual trainings as well? Now VT here is virtual training. How to replicate? I think one of our audience, I think it was Harsh who asked this question, how to replicate the CRT effectiveness in a virtual environment. How do we replicate the best practices of a classroom training in a virtual environment? So these are questions we asked ourselves. Should our content, now we have a repository of content, is that content sufficient, or does it have to be designed in a different way? What could be the possible roadblocker? Are our people tech savvy enough to do a virtual training or not? What could be the possible roadblockers? As trainers, we're so used to playing those icebreakers, we're used to playing training games, energizers. The question we asked ourselves, and personally, like I am a big fan of these training games in the workshops. So how do we digitize those training activities? That was the next question we like spend a lot of time upon. While the existing challenges and the areas of improvement were there, COVID had gotten new set of challenges also, and what should be the topics that we should be training our internal folks on, and what should we do so that we can help our clients in their business continuity plans? What kind of tools and technologies? Now budget constraint was something which is familiar with everyone. So when this budget constraint was also laid upon us, what kind of tools and technologies and platforms can be used? And at last, how do we measure the effectiveness of our virtual training? So these are the kind of questions we asked ourselves, and to have the answers to all this in a while, we'll have Shakita doing it. But I think before I hand over the stage to Shakita, it was a quick poll for all of you. Request all of you to participate here. So
yeah. So basically, I think it will be good to have audience like your view regarding the biggest challenge which you feel which is there around virtual training. I think that will, and then Shakita, as Sunita also shared, then I'll invite you to just talk about that more in detail. Plus, I have some tough questions in store for you as well.
Sure, Abhilasha, thank you. And I'll be more than happy to answer all your questions. So we'll just see how the poll results come in, and then we'll take it forward.
Great. So now I'm still seeing people voting. So I think we'll just another 2 seconds and we'll close down. So in case you haven't voted, please cast your vote. Please poll. Great. So
Yes, so I see the poll results on the screen, and it's really nice to see that the biggest challenge that we see in virtual training is engaging the participants. So, Sunita, do you think we had the same constraint while we were brainstorming?
I guess this was the
Quite
greatest fear we had, engaging
right.
the participants.
So, we all training fraternity thinks alike, I believe. So, yes, very well taken up. So, I will be taking care of this question. And with that, we move forward.
Yeah, I think this is one of the critical points because they are the frontline players, Shakita, I guess. Because if the
Yes.
trainer is not well trained to train, I know it's a tongue twister, then the whole thing goes for a toss. So yeah, so how do you suggest that the training people should go about it? How to train the trainer? Yeah.
Certainly. So, Abhilasha, in some ways, I would say that the skills required by a virtual trainer are similar to those required to a trainer in an in-person training or a classroom training. But then, just to let you know, and also to lay stress on that for a virtual trainer, he needs to plan it better, he needs to script it better, and he needs to practice it better. So, it doesn't go with the same way with face-to-face training, because over there we have the audience in front of us. We can understand their body language. We can see whether they are engaged with us and what is the body language, what is it that they are trying to share with us. But in place of a virtual training, it does not happen, and the trainer needs to be all the more practice that needs to be done and done in an in-person training. Again, from here, I would also like to take your attention to the part where a virtual training needs to also consider the tone, the clarity of the content. And again, as Sunita had discussed, that the content needs to be really concise, because in a virtual training, these things matter a lot. And again, when we talk about enabling the trainer, there are certain things that the virtual trainer needs to be aware of while he's doing the training, because certain unexpected things also happen in a virtual session. For example, if we have a disengaged participant, so because you're not able to see the audience, you're not aware that is the participant engaged or they are not engaged. So we try to engage the attendees with the help of activities where we judge them whether they are engaged, whether they are into it. Again,
This would be, I guess, the biggest horror for any trainer, like not knowing whether the learner is engaged or maybe peeking into some different screen at that time. So I guess
absolutely, Abhilasha, this is very critical for the virtual trainer. And again, it's very essential for the trainer to be himself. So there's a very comfortable relationship that develops between the online learner and the virtual trainer, so that the online environment is comfortable and the learner is able to share his views. Again, there are certain expectations which are not expected out of the virtual session, but they crop up. There is the major thing which I would like to talk about here is, again, the new learners. Now, as the virtual training, as Rita already said, that it is not a new concept. It has been with us since last 20 years. But again, now it is the only way that is there. So the new learners in a virtual session will be not so comfortable using the applications or using the modes. So we need to understand their challenges and also resolve them then and there. So these few unexpected things come up in the virtual session, which the trainer has to be enabled to take care of. Does that answer your question, Abhilasha?
Yeah, Shakita, it does. However, I remember actually from my classroom training sessions, because I have taken a virtual trainings, but obviously they're less in number in comparison to the classroom trainings which I've had taken. So the classroom trainings, they're kind of enjoyable, like being together with everyone. Like you would agree with me, like human beings, we're social animal. We like being with other people, not just virtually. So in virtual training, like I think there's just a personal feeling that charm gets lost somewhere, or is there something else which compensates for that human to human interaction during this replication of classroom training to virtual training? If you can talk a bit about that.
Certainly, I will take that. And I believe there was one of the questions from the audience also regarding the same thing. So how
Yes.
can we have the same experience as in an in-person training in context to the virtual training? So before I go to that question, I would like to share a few stats from trainingmag.com that 86% of virtual participants rated the experience as engaging as the traditional experience of the classroom training. So that was the stat. And also 100% of the participants were highly satisfied with the training experience, the experience that you were talking about, Abhilasha, of classroom training. So they had the similar experience in a virtual training. So it is not so difficult to replicate the CRT experience, a classroom experience in a virtual training. Again, there are certain things which needs to be taken care of. And the first thing I would like to talk about is the interaction. So the interactions has to be, again, this would answer to one of the questions from the audience, that how can you keep the audience engaged? So again, we have to build in opportunities so that we engage with the audience through different activities that we run. And it should be a natural relation or a natural environment that is created between the learner and the virtual trainer, so that you know that your audience is engaged with you. The next thing we'd like to talk about is about the content. Again, the content has to be really engaging content with graphics and a lot of multimedia included, so that the engagement of the audience is more, and we can see that while they're answering and while it is an interactive session. The last part would be the digitization. Again, the virtual trainer needs to be very able to multitask. He can also measure his learners' success through various activities, online activities, rapid fire quiz, etc. And over here, I would like Sunita to share her experience over the same.
Great. Thanks for giving this opportunity to me, because this is like my personal bit. So replicating the CRT experience, apart from like just forcing in and building in opportunities where the trainer has to interact with his learners and to ensure that the theme of the entire module and the content is there in place to engage our audience, it's also important that all our energizers and activities, role plays, quizzes, and all those things are taken up in a fun way on the virtual mode. Now, just to share a couple of examples that we had. A few days back, we had our training, and the trainer, one of our trainers, what he did was he played a small treasure hunt on his screen itself. So he was supposed to take up the topic on social selling, and what he did was he hid in clues regarding the topic on the screen in between a few images. And then, yes, this got all our learners glued to their screen, look at their screen, look for words, give the answers in the chat window, and this way the engagement started. And we all know something that starts well definitely ends well. So this way we got the attention of the learners. This is just one example in that sharing with you. Second thing is that we would try to ensure that every 5th or 6th minute we connect with our audience or the trainers in some or the other form. It could be in form of an activity, a poll, a quiz, show them a video, ask them a question, an open-ended question, or ask them to leave something in the chat. Another thing here, many tools have good features like a breakout area or collaboration option. So peer learning is something that we can encourage while we are digitizing our learning games also online. We've also played a game which was like called What's Outside My Window. And so this question was asked to the learners, what's outside the window, and they had to come up with a completely unimaginable answer. So it made them put on their thinking caps and get on to the learning mode. Round robin story, it's a popular game which we play offline, so that can be implicated, that could be put in online. There are many collaborative tools available, so you can do a joint drawing with your participants on one of those tools. Rapid fire, fastest finger first. We've also had Zumba and a few stretch exercises. Now, wherein the content was long, wherein we had to stretch beyond 1.5 hours of training, we made sure we gave our learners more breaks, and we did those stretch exercises, and it got the attention back. We also tried to keep the webcam on. The trainers try to keep the webcam on. Just to stare a statistic here, only 27% of the trainers use the webcam, while in the use of webcam can really give that in-person feel when we are delivering a virtual session. We've also run contests. So there are contests which we do and reward our people, especially on social selling, because that's the need of the hour. Leaderboards are like shared. We take our learning beyond the virtual session, and certain assignments are given wherein the role plays, instead of doing a one-to-one role play, the role plays have to be recorded, uploaded. A video has to be created and uploaded on closed communities which we've created on G Plus or on Facebook, and then we ask our trainees to get more likes on it, and people with more likes get awarded. So all these kind of engagement keep our audience excited about the entire training experience. And then yes, social learning is another thing which is picking up. These are trending words these days: social learning, reverse education. So we try to make use of all these things, wherein a peer-to-peer teaching can be done, and one of our training gets to show his mastery of skills. So it's like motivating. Also, pre-activity is very important. So before you start a training, a pre-activity is always good. That creates the hype, create a lot of buzz, circulate.
Like a warm-up kind of a thing, like before exercise.
Exactly, yes. So warm-up kind of a thing. Create the buzz, and even on emails, and we have so many WhatsApp group created these days. Make sure the messaging goes right to our trainees, that what is in it for them when it comes to the session which is going to be conducted. So this way, from all angles. So it's like a small, Abhilasha, you'll be able to relate to it. It's more like a small marketing program that you're creating. You need to market your training well, engage with your audience, and ensure the learning will definitely follow. In these times of crisis, I think it's important that we have fun also involved in our training, keep each other happy and motivated. Over to you, Abhilasha.
Yeah, so I think the experience part is quite clear to me now. In fact, Sunita, you've got me excited for the next virtual training, the HRLed virtual training, which I've enrolled myself for. However, from a tactical point of view, because I can see we have audience like a very wide, from a wide spectrum of like industry domain, we have the audience today. So I would like to touch upon the tactical part, as in like, how do you begin? So from the ground zero, if you can talk about that, the process, Shakita. And I know you're the expert over here in this domain, so over to you.
Certainly. So if you would like to ask, like, what is the ground level scratch from where we start, the major thing that we talk about is the identification of training needs. So either it is a training need analysis. So over here we bifurcate it into why. So why is training required? Why is training required? Is it the performance that we are checking? Is the person not performing well? Or is it the complete outcome that we want to look at of the employee, that how is he improving, or where do we want him to improve? And on the basis of that, how will we measure the improvement? So what do we need out of the training? What is the outcome that we are looking for? And again, the major thing at the last but not the least is to gain the management support. Now, again, once we are determined like why we want to do these trainings, schedule these trainings, and for whom, for the organization, for the task that needs to be completed, or for the employees. Now, after these two segments are covered, we move on to the last one, which is the most important one, the various stages. So first, the problem identification. So what is the problem? Why are we about to do the training? Why are we planning or scheduling the training? The need analysis. Now, after the identification is done, then which methodology has to be used to do the training need identification. Then post that, the complete data collection. And once the data is collected in a particular methodology, we need to analyze it and see the feedback, like what are the things that the particular employee needs to be trained on, customized training content, and then the action plan development. Now, in the action plan comes the complete strategizing, the scheduling, the content, the duration, all that falls into the same thing. So this is how we go in deep to understand why the training is needed, and henceforth the training need identification followed by an analysis.
Basically, it's like a super duper in-depth diagnosis, which is done before you even begin the journey.
Yes, that is the toughest part, because unless we are clear on those factors, it becomes very difficult for us to start with the action plan, to schedule, to strategize, and henceforth. And
Yeah, so I
along
guess
with
like
that,
it seemed like you have a strong foundation, and then only you can have a strong building.
yes,
So
we build it up on the same. And over here, I would also like to mention on the topics. So there are certain topics which are the regular topics we train on, which is sales acumen, product, process, soft skill, then retail grooming standards, productivity. These are the regular topics. But currently, during the COVID-19 duration, these are few topics which are the trending topics. So these are work from home. So there are certain practices that we do while we work from home. Sunita had also mentioned that there was the how to work from home, then how to empathize, the business continuity plan, remote and social selling, innovation, and again, time management. Along with all this, I would also like to mention few topics which are like motivational. As again, Sunita mentioned that during that time, it is very important that we keep each other motivated and happy. So the best practices, all these are shared, and these are topics which are trending at the moment during this.
okay,
Does it
Shakita, would you
answer your
also
question?
like to? Yeah, it does. In fact, the trending part is interesting because I was in fact about to ask you about that, because since the time the lockdown has started, there have been a
Mm-hmm.
lot many random trends which we're seeing on social media, be it related to people showcasing their culinary skills or something else, some other kind of like random, some funny challenges or something. But it is
The
all about,
saree challenge and the haircut challenge.
yeah.
Yes, Sunita. How can we
Yeah,
not
so
talk
I
about
think it
this?
is all about like riding on that trend wave as well. So in order to maintain
Yes,
relevance with the situation, the COVID situation.
yes.
Shakita, do you also want to talk about the technology part? Like as it was mentioned in the beginning, I think Sunita mentioned it. So maybe if you can give the audience some cue on a couple of like good tools, some suggestions, or the collaborative technologies which can be leveraged, because it is a new turf for a lot many people, if not for all. So if you can just throw some
Yes, I
light on that.
agree, and I would be more than happy to share this, Abhilasha. So, as we know that the general question that comes to a common man's mind is that in order for a virtual training to work, do we need an LMS? So the answer is no. We can do it without an LMS also. So as we're talking about leveraging technology, and I would here like to talk about few freewares and open platforms which are easily available and accessible for all of us. So for few of them which I would like to mention here would be the WebEx, GoToWebinar, Ring Central Webinar. These are few tools online which are available for us, and the most used ones which we talk about now is the Teams and Zoom. Again, for collaborative whiteboard, we have the Zeta board, few of the applications, then we have Note and collaborative notebook. These are few free applications which are available for all of us to use. Also for assessment tools, we have Quiz Builder, we have Kahoot, we have Quizzes. All these are there free available for all of us to use. And again, if you want to have an enhanced experience, then we have certain paid popular tools also, and platforms are there which are available for all of us to have a hands-on and use them.
Okay, but I guess in case if you have a partner on board, I think all these things would be taken care of. Is that right?
Absolutely right. So it is all in our kitty then, and we take it forward from there, like which suits them the best, the audience and everyone together.
A customized plan.
Yes, a
Okay,
customized plan.
that's great. Sunita, here at this point, I would like to ask you not a tough but a very important question, which I am assuming that everybody in our audience would want to know the answer for. Um, the ROI part. It's been historically been debated how to exactly and very precisely get the ROI calculation of the training actions which are being done. So if you can just talk a bit about that.
Yes, Abhilash, I think that's one of the most critical part of not just training, but any function is what is either the ROI or the ROE. So when we speak of training, we just don't speak of return on investment. We also speak on another terminology, which is ROE, which is return on expectation. So yes, certainly, I think we should be covering that because many supervisors, especially when they're not from the training domain, sales head, sales manager, it comes to our notice sometimes that they may feel that training is just a non-productive day, or it is just an easy paid day, or maybe a day which is wasted, or anything similar. While on the other hand, we also know, like we from the training background, we also know that training isn't a very cheap thing. I mean, there's a budget involved, there's a lot of sweat which gets involved, and it's but natural to know that the desired results, have they been obtained, achieved or not. So in both the scenarios, I think it's important that we check and track and monitor how effective the training has been and how it's contributing to the overall organizational objective, right? So measuring an effectiveness of a virtual training will more or less stand similar to how we measure a effectiveness of a classroom training, but a few matrices and maybe the kind of tools that we use could be different. When I say tools, I mean because we've all speaking about virtual, so there's a whole lot of online tools available to measure these effectiveness, so we can make use of it. So organizations and training people, they try like different measures to measure this efficiently, and they do it in one way or the other. And maybe there's someone who's trying to find out the effectiveness of a training through a feedback mechanism, while there might be someone who's maybe administrating assessment to find out if the training was impactful or not. While these are not wrong, while these are, yes, these are required, but these are all subsets of a bigger picture. So when we speak about training evaluation, especially because it's virtual training is new, and I think we should thoroughly be evaluating it. So when it comes to that, I think a holistic approach is what would be effective. And here I would like to pick up one of my favorite evaluation method, which was proposed by Kirkpatrick, and he speaks about evaluation in 4 folds at 4 levels. So this is going to be a little lengthy, so just require a bit of attention here from everyone, that the first level that we measure effectiveness on is the reaction. Now, training is a task, and it is a task to create a program to which all trainees would respond to. Hence, knowing how the trainee felt about the entire training program and the experience is important, and that's exactly level 1. The instant feedback could be captured, and that is how we can know how our trainees felt about the program. So now Google Forms are there, there is SurveyMonkey available, there are all these tools which are available where a feedback or a survey can be run, and we can capture the reaction of our learners. The second bit when we speak about is capturing the effectiveness of learning. The effective training program should have all the learners learn what they're supposed to be learning, right? So to check this, there are quizzes that we can do. We can do competency assessments. We can run pre and post assessments. This is to understand if the trainee has attended the training and he has been able to learn anything or not. So doing these kind of assessments are required. And then yes, we have various online tools available, free and otherwise also, like quizzes are there. We have Easy Quiz Builder, and Shakita has already mentioned a few. So these kind of tools can be measured. So while 1 and 2 are very popular and most of us do it, what's significant is the next 2 levels that we will speak about. The third level being the result or the effectiveness on behavior. Every training program has an objective, right? So that objective, has it met or has it not been met? For example, we're doing a training for our person to be able to maybe close a deal well, maybe to execute a sale well, or perhaps we are doing a training so that the trainee can write effective emails. While reaction could be good, while he may say that yes, I thoroughly enjoyed the training, 5 out of 5, while he's understood all theory part of how to write an email and he has passed his assessment, so the learning part is taken care of. But what's more important is for him to implement that behavior or to get that change in behavior. So here we can go back to the supervisor, take a feedback and see if the behavioral changes have been gotten or not. We can also measure this behavior change through some kind of simulations and all that thing. So this is basically to find out if the trainee is demonstrating the learnings in his actual jobs, those KPIs and KRAs, are they being taken care of? And from here, of course, if there's a change in behavior, bingo. If there's no change in behavior, then there's a very popular terminology that all of us use, which is skill issue or will issue. If it's skill, put him back to training. Will, then yes, think about it otherwise. So that's the third level, measuring the effectiveness on behavior. And this brings us to the level 4, which is result. So here the measure is of what our training has done to the organizational objective. We generally miss out, most of us miss out, because either it can be a tedious task or we are directionless on how to do it, or we are scared of finding out the result. It could be anything, but most of us miss out on this part as to what are the results, how are we bringing an impact, we as in we from the training team, how are we bringing an impact to the entire organizational objective, how are we adding value. And it is always also a good thing to go and check that whatever budgets which had been allocated to us and whatever cost we've incurred, so have we given back organization something in return, and has it been the money, the worth of the money spent has been received or not. So that's where the 1, 2 and 3 levels are more of ROE, which is return on expectation, has been the expectation, has it been met or not, while the fourth bit is ROI, which is the return on investment. We all know the formula of calculating return on investment. We don't want to get into all that now, but then yes, we all know those. There are calculators available, and yes, we need to be mindful of all the costs that we've incurred and the value that we are adding. So yes, this is my bit on measuring effectiveness and ROI. So over to you, Shakita.
Thanks, Sunita, for the information and very important information that you shared. So now to sum it up, I would just like to take a few minutes to share the best practices that we take the entire training, virtual training, to be a success and have an impact. So it starts from the beginning. So the right ingredients, be it the virtual trainer, the enablement of the trainer, the scheduling, the planning, the platform that is used, the content which is used, the buzz that is created, the hype should be there, the social media, the social part of it, the fun element also has to be there, as we are talking here about virtual training, engagement, design, and the evaluation together. If all these right ingredients are put in the right proportion, then it keeps them all together and we have a impactful virtual training.
Thank you so much, Shakita, for I think summing it up all very beautifully in terms of like a big basket of best practices and benefits and all. So as we are almost like nearing to the end of our webinar, I would like to take this opportunity to ask you, Sunita and Shakita, what are the final thoughts around virtual training which you want to leave the audience with? And after that, I'll pass it on to Girija, because then we have open floor for Q&A, because we have a couple of questions as I see in the chat window as well. So then we'll be taking up the Q&A, but before that, the final words from you.
Sure. Thanks, Abhilasha. And what I would like to say is, let us not harp on this, as we know that virtual training is here to stay now, and also to be the normal way forward. So let's take it as a practice that has to be there and taken forward.
Exactly, the way of life, as we've been calling it from quite a few days now. Just to add a little more to it here from my end, virtual training in the corporate world has been like more than 25 years old. And since 2000, the virtual training industry and the e-learning industry, it has seen a whooping growth of over 900%. Yes, you heard me right, 900%. So the trend is only increasing. And to just state a few more stats, by 2025, the e-learning and the virtual training industry, it's estimated to be a $325 billion industry, and that's huge. More and more organizations are picking up newer methods of training. They are picking up the virtual mode of training because of the benefits it carries and the kind of learners that we have these days. There are many innovations, creativity is being added in the way things have been delivered. There's no thumb rule of doing a thing right or wrong. We are all experimenting and doing it. But then as we speak about all these, there are a few emerging trends that we've all been observing from a few days, and I thought it would be a good idea to share them with you. The future of virtual training lies in virtual reality. Now, we've all played those VR games, right? Augmented reality games and all that. But yes, that's been the trend which is slowly picking up, and maybe 10 years down the lane, everyone would be doing just a VR training. Walmarts, Castrol, all these are industries which are doing VRs. To make training more scalable, podcasts are being done. We have different kind of learners, right? We all remember our VARK theory. So podcast is another thing which is suiting the learning needs of our audio kind of learners. Modules are being circulated in smaller chunks, smaller videos are being circulated. So that's another trend related to virtual training, or maybe enabling a virtual training, but these are trends which are picking up. We're also seeing that many organizations these days, they're doing away with the complete training function in their organization, and they're outsourcing or creating new training partners for themselves, people who are experts in their field of domain. There's a lot of user adoption that we see in virtual training. Technologies started to get a lot of acceptance these days. The use of mobile phones is increasing, and in fact, we did a survey ourselves and we found out that 65% of our learners log in through their mobile phone for their learning experience. So I think in the future, a lot of stress will be laid upon creating a CMS, that's content management solution or learning management solution, keeping in mind the mobility of the device. And I think, yes, with more and more organizations who are picking up work from home and remote working as the new workforce strategy, we've seen TCS announce it, we've seen many other organizations announce it. So I think, yes, VT, virtual training, is only here to stay.
Thank you very much, Sunita, Shakita, and Girija, for being very great presenters and hosts today. And a great thank you to our audience as well for being very patient and asking a lot of questions to our in-house experts today.